Welcome back to video. I think it's video part 3, if I'm not mistaken. Anywho, we kind of chat about strings in the previous video, and in this video I'm gonna chat about integers, and we're gonna chat about floating point numbers, arrays, objects, and null values. Quite a lot, right? So anyway, let's start off with integers. Now we kind of know now what is data types. Now we're gonna kind of dive into the whole PHP integers kind of thing. And now, like I said in the previous video, if you talk about integers and if you talk about floating point is literally a floating point either to the positive or floating point either to the negative. Looking at a 32 to 60 base, base 32 to 64 bit. Now, an integer is a number without a decimal. Very important. It doesn't have a decimal. That means that it can either be 1, 10, minus 300, plus 300. It can't be 100.567 or 100,123. So it can only be a solid number. If that makes sense. Now, the rules for integers, and integers must have at least 1, okay, to 9 digits, 0 to 9, okay. An integer cannot contain commas or blanks. Like I said, it's got to be a solid unit, right? And that's the thing though from an integer. It's got to be a solid dead pound unit. Now, a integer can either be positive or negative. So it's very much the same as a floating point. It can either go up to the positive, down to the negative. But once again, integer has got no integer doesn't have any commas or blank spaces where a floating point does have. So an integer can be specified in 3 formats: decimal, 10 based, hexadecimal, 16 based, preferred with 0x, or octal based, 8 based. Oh, I'm confused there. Sorry, what I meant is 16. You've got 3 formats. You've got 10 based, hexadecimal, 16 base, prefixed with 0x, or the third one is octal, 8 based, prefixed with 0. Now let me pull up an example for you, and I want to show you this example. Just want to figure out where my mouse is at. Come on. It's because I'm using dual screens here and it's messing everything up. Okay. Okay, let me just remove that, and I want to show you another example, and we're just going to chat about it, right? Okay, now over there, let's chat about it. Over there, I'm saying $x equals to 5985, so I'm giving it a value. So that at number line 2, I can see, okay, well, that is a variable, and the variable name is x, and now we know, okay, well, I can see it is an integer. Why can I see it's an integer? Well, because it's saying 5985. That means that it's a solid number, and it's in the positive. It's got no commas, it's got no blanks, so that is an integer. So then I say, okay, well, var dump $x, okay, which means that I'm taking $x and I'm making it 0 again. So number 2, I'm defining it as 5985. Number 3, I am dumping it to 0. Then I'm saying echo br, we know that's enter, and then we say $x minus 345. That's a negative number, so it means that it's going back to the negative, so it's floating back, right? And then at number 8, we are defining a hexadecimal. Now I said the way that we define a hexadecimal is going 0x. So we're going 0x8c, okay? Which means that it will define that that as a hexadecimal and would give 8. Decimal is 10 base, so it will give you something in the mind of 800 million or 10 million. No, 810 million. Okay? No, 800 million. That's what it's going to give you. Then you dump it again, so you clean it up, and then at line number 11 you go, we use an octal decimal, so we go 047. Okay, so that's the basics behind integers. Now the next thing, once we understand integers, is kind of looking at floating point numbers. Now floating point numbers is and I'm going to explain it again. I kind of explained it already, but a floating point number is a number with a decimal point or a number in an exponential form. Okay. In the following example that I'm going to show you, we will test the different numbers, and I'll show you the different ways of having. I'm just going to copy it. Of having a floating point. Okay, so over there I'm going $X, I'm defining a variable, and I'm making the variable name X again, and then I'm going 10.365. Okay, do you see what I meant about floating point is an integer, so to say, but with a point and then 365 or 367 or 125 or that kind of stuff. So that is quite important to know that, right? It's important to understand and to know that. Now, a Boolean is basically either true or false. It's quite simple. It's straightforward. You have true and you have false. Okay. Now, a PHP arrow, this is what we used in the previous videos. We kind of discussed what is, I just showed you a basic example of Volvo, BMW, and Toyota. I showed you an array example of that, and I'm going to pull it up again, and I'm going to show you how we define, okay, an array. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to put it on the screen so that you can have a look at it. So over here I'm saying $cars equals array. Okay, so I'm saying the variable name, I'm saying $, so the $, equals to, I'm creating a variable, and I'm giving it a name, and I'm giving the name of cars. Okay, so now we know it's a variable, and the variable name is cars. Then we go and say array. So we're saying, okay, well, this is an array. Okay, then I'm going array. So then I'm giving it values. Now I'm saying Volvo, BMW, and Toyota. Okay. Now the question that I have for you is, how do we define, let's say if we wanted to call up BMW, how would we do that? Okay. So we do that by calling up the certain section of the array. Calling up a certain section of the array, we would go, it would start always with numbering it. Okay, so you would number it from 0 to 9. Okay, so in this case we have Volvo, BMW, Toyota. So if I want to call up Toyota, I would say it needs to call up number 2. Okay, why is it number 2 and not number 3? Because there's 3 values, right? So it needs to be 3. Okay, the reason for that is because we start counting from 0, not from 1. So we'd go 0, 1, 2. Okay, so that means that if I wanted to call up BMW, I would be calling up number 1 instead of number 2. So do you see how important is it to understand that actually? Okay, so a good example of that to be called up is we'll be covering in the next video. So we will be covering how do we actually call up a certain array. Now, an object, that's the other thing that I wanted to chat to you about, is as an object. So don't worry about arrays at the moment because we will be covering it in the following videos. So what is a PHP object? Now, a PHP object is a data type which stores data and information on how to process that specific data. Okay. Now, in PHP, an object must explicitly be declared. Like in other programming languages, you can get away with not declaring it, and but in PHP you have to declare it. Now, first we must declare the class of the object, and then we must use the class keyword. Now, a class is a structure that can contain properties and methods. Now, let me show you an example. This will explain it to you a bit more. So there is the example right there for you. Now, in the next video, I'm going to discuss this example with you so that you understand what a PHP object is.